We do a little bit of assessment before. So everybody brought out a different story. Someone just wants to get better at their game for it. Somebody just wants to have a better sleep. Somebody wants to just, gain more confidence for it. Some people, they just want to do it because of their back. That 1 hour of your yoga practice is so much of stimuli for your brain that you don't have any space for any random thoughts that could cross your head. Because there are so many details you really need to look after. Like it's like watching a screen with lots of KPIs. But it's all internal. You're watching your breath, you're watching the engagement of your muscle. So the amount of mindfulness that yoga brings on the mat is just amazing. It gives you that spatial intelligence. And then you're like, oh wow. It's like that moment. When you're like, oh, you just discovered that you have a new power and then you want to use it.
Well, now there is this whole scientific explanation to yoga. There's logic, there's physics that is happening in your body that you understand. There's a chemical release in your body that you understand. There's a biochemical reaction that is happening in your body. So the science is working at every level of yoga. But it just blows my mind that about 5,000 years ago, when the sages and rishis were doing this practice, and they could just tell so much about all of this, which is now put into the words of logic, just by understanding their breath.
जब भी मैं meditation करने बैठता हूँ, what happens? I get a lot of thoughts in my head. People understand that those thoughts, that internal mental chatter right in the beginning, or even during your practice of meditation, is part of the process. You just have to imagine it's like a plane taking off. In order for the plane to take off, it needs to come out of the hangar. It then needs to find its way to the runway, and then it begins to go, and then it's facing the friction against the wind, and then it uses the winds to take off, and the next thing you know is you're in the middle of the air and there's white noise around you. That's how meditation should feel like.
How does this 10 minutes of meditation a day impact the other 23 hours and 50 minutes of my day? What is the faida of doing this 10 minutes a day?
10 minutes, if you're a beginner, is a very large goal. Even 1 minute is good enough. The fact that you remember to do that 1 minute micro meditation is already somewhere, is already something. It's already a leap towards your own inner self.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Journey Within podcast with me, Shobha Rana. This is a podcast where we try to steer conversations through the lives of my guests and their stories into understanding our inner world better. Now there are two lives that we lead at all points in time. There is a life that we lead in the outer and the external world where we have a certain identity, we relate to certain things, we have a relationship status, a financial status, and everything else that is going on for me. However, there's also a life that I lead into my inner world. My inner world decides the translation of everything that I'm experiencing in my outer life. How do I feel about that? How do I consume it? Now, my outer life could have everything going on for me, and yet the inner translation could be absolute misery. My outer life could have less of everything, yet my inner translation could be absolutely ecstatic about life, absolutely joyous state of being. So how does this translation happen? What is this connection between my inner and the outer world? That is the conversation that truly interests me. And that is the conversation where I feel there's a lot for us to gain from and explore into the deeper dimensions of human potential. Now, today the guest I have got on my show is somebody who has been teaching yoga for a very long time. They say 10,000 hours is what you take to perfect a thing. He has been teaching yoga for 16,000 hours and more. And he has taught in various parts of the world. He has lived in Japan for a bit, for about 4 to 5 years, lived in Italy, lived in various parts of the world, taught yoga to people from different ethnicities, have taught yoga here in India. He works with athletes, with astronauts, with Olympians like Abhinav Bindra and what not. So please welcome on my today's show, the one and the only Zubin Atre.
Thank you, Shobha. That was a lovely introduction.
Hi Zubin,
Hi,
welcome
Shobha.
to the podcast. I'm so excited to see you here today because I have been truly inspired by your journey, the way you've taken yoga to the world, to the Western world, and have familiarized them with the beauty of yoga. It's just incredible. Take me through one of your memorable experience of teaching in the West. Vis-a-vis, draw a parallel also for me. How similar are the students, or what's the difference that you find while teaching from people?
So I always had a mixed bunch of people that were coming to my studio. So we had people from European countries, we had people coming from Americas, and we had a lot of people coming from our country itself. Um, so teaching in different countries, like teaching to people from different countries, were always happening. But again, it was a special experience to teach and run a yoga studio in Tokyo, though. Because it's a little bit unforgiving, like in India you can see like everything kind of is a bit relaxed and things are fine and all, but in Tokyo, whatever you say, you have to stick to it. So I'm very punctual about my time. I want to make sure that I'm starting my classes on time as well. So one thing I saw when I was teaching in Japan was that people were always on time. And they were actually, so in Japan they say that if you are on time, you're already late.
Right.
Teaching in Europe was also interesting. I would throw a little bit of words of local languages, or let's say Spanish for an instance, let's say a little bit of Italian, to get the more out of, to just break the monotony of sometimes people, they don't have that kind of a grip over a language which you are necessarily using to teach them. So yeah, word plays, some puns would work in different countries. Sometimes people are punctual, sometimes people, they take their own sweet time. Sometimes you will see like, okay, they transmit their stress in a yoga class. You can see like what's going on around them. You can literally see into their head, like, they're stressed or they had to rush to reach on time and all.
How do people from these different backgrounds approach yoga? Do they approach it as a strictly physical practice that needs a lot of rigor, flexibility, bending your body, contorting your body, etc.? Or do they also associate it to certain spiritual aspects of their being?
I think each individual has their own expectations, and each individual comes with their own journey behind, and also with their goals which they want to reach. So I had all sort of students, Shobha, to be honest. So like I had people who had no clue about yoga. They've never done it. They have not even a basic knowledge of yoga, and they're just dragged into the studio by a friend. And then there are people who have written books on yoga, and then they are there and they want to learn more and experience more, or maybe from a newer teacher. Like in my yoga studio, we encourage no levels. If there are 6 students in my yoga class, you would see there would be like people who are from different backgrounds. So I think, yes, typically a lot of people just get into the yoga journey purely for the physical aspect of it, because there is always an assessment. I really want to talk to my students and I want to understand what's their journey like, what are their goals like, what are their health issues in case they have, so we do a little bit of assessment before. So everybody brought out a different story. Someone just wants to get better at their game, for instance. Somebody just wants to have a better sleep. Somebody wants to just gain more confidence, for instance. Some people, they just want to do it because of their backache. I had people coming with their backs injured, for an instance, so all sort of physical to people who want to do to just better themselves in one way or the other, or sometimes people even are there with no expectations at all, which is also interesting.
Right. Zubin, what makes yoga so special and unique? There are so many different forms of workouts that one can do if it's about physical endeavors and pushing your physical boundaries. But why the whole of the West, and now even our home country and everybody in the world, is getting so obsessed with yoga? What is so special about it?
Oh, yoga is very unique in so many ways, Shobha. So let's see, for an instance, any form of workout you're looking at, let's say gym workout, you're picking up weights, you're dealing with iron and ropes and all that kind of stuff. You could have like a lot of thoughts that are going on in your head. But when you're doing yoga, it requires so much of detail that if you're really ending up teaching, or practicing yoga with a good yoga teacher who know what they're doing, you will see like that 1 hour of your yoga practice is so much of stimuli for your brain that you don't have any space for any random thoughts that could cross your head. Because there are so many details you really need to look after. Like you have it's like watching a screen with lots of KPIs. But it's all internal. You're watching your breath, you're watching the engagement of your muscles. So the amount of mindfulness that yoga brings on the mat is just amazing. Now we don't have that kind of patience to only be in that little rectangle. Anything else is like can be done while listening to loud music and all. Nothing wrong with that either, It can be run on autopilot. For instance, you could be picking up weights and all that kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with that. I pick up weights myself, but the amount of mental energy that yoga requires and that amount of mental stimuli it brings to you and the amount of things it leaves, even once you're done with your yoga session is crazy. So I have one of these things which I always let my students know, that yoga carries on even if you are done with your yoga class. It stays with you.
It's a way of life. It
Yeah.
gets engineered into your own being and system.
Yeah.
Very interesting observation that I had, Zubin, through my yoga journey. So, of course, I also started because of some aspirations of being fit on a certain level, and yoga helped me to push my boundaries in that way. But after a few months or years of practice, I realized that I started becoming so observant of even my standing posture.
Right.
Even while I'm just doing nothing, I'm standing, maybe doing some chore in my kitchen or otherwise,
Right.
I could really feel that core to my knees, to my ankles connection. This whole sense of awareness coming to you, this
Yeah.
mindfulness coming to you, wherein you're observing even these little nuances about yourself while you're doing something else.
Right.
It's just miraculous. It's amazing.
Right.
Zubin, when does this crossover between yoga being just a pure physical form of practice for you to it being a more of a spiritual practice happens? When does that awakening happen for
See,
for a
it
person?
is all whatever you are experiencing, like what you said, like, okay, when you are in the kitchen, you are experiencing a better coordination with your body, you're more mindful about your movements. It actually starts at the very physical level. It's like, how do we eat a chapati? We start with one choti bite. We don't shove the whole chapati in the mouth. The same way how we eat a burger, we start with the tiny bite. It starts with the physical practice. Even if you read the old yoga scriptures, you will see the physical part of yoga, the asana bit, is the first bit. You begin with that. And then the whole idea is to prepare your body enough so that you can sit in Sukhasana for long hours. Now, what exactly you were experiencing in terms of mindfulness and being a bit more aware about your bodily movements and exactly where your body parts are, that particular phenomena is called proprioception. It's your body's ability to know where your body parts are without having to look at it. This is what helps you to put a sock on in your foot in a dark room, for instance. You know where the foot is, you know where the sock is, you know where how it goes in. You can't get that wrong, right? Even if I cover your eyes. This is how you drive a stick shift. This is without looking at it. This is when you know where the indicators are. So yoga, when it starts, this is where it starts. It helps you to get better at your bodily movements, the coordination. And then the second thing it works is your kinesthetic awareness. So that's your ability to know where your body parts are with respect to the objects around you. So it gives you that spatial intelligence. And then you're like, oh wow, it's like that moment when you're like, oh, you just discovered that you have a new power and then you want to use it. And that's exactly, it makes you think. It's not just body, it's the breath. And that's the sandwich: body, breath, and mind. Breath is the connection between the body and the mind. So how we breathe, how we feel can be felt by how you're breathing. When you're anxious, the way you breathe is different. When you're calm, the way you breathe is different. When you're nervous, the way you breathe is different. When you're angry, the way you breathe is different. When you're scared, the way you breathe is different. So if the emotion can control the breath also has the ability to control the emotion.
So it's a two-way connection.
Absolutely.
And that is, I think, where and why yoga works wonders for people having any of these issues that you just mentioned. So when you're scared, you breathe in a certain way. So you could change your breath by practicing it enough to attune your mind to not be in that scary translation.
100% correct. You can tune it. Use your breath as a string to control how you feel.
Zubin, now there is this whole scientific explanation to yoga. There's logic, there's physics, that is happening in your body that you understand. There's a chemical release in your body that you understand now. There's a biochemical reaction that is happening in your body. So the science is working at every level of yoga. But it just blows my mind that about 5,000 years ago, when the sages and rishis were doing this practice, and they could just tell so much about all of this, which is now put into the words of logic, just by understanding their breath, just by making it a practice as simplistic as that. And it feels amazing to see that how everything large and big and magnificent and significant is connected to these very simple, small aspects of life as your breath.
Correct. See, we need a reintroduction to yoga because we think yoga is just the physical part of it. Now, that's what you see, the yoga being done. Those things are just asanas. Let me sum up yoga for everyone with a very small story, made up story, but it gets to the point really quick. There's a rishi long time ago who wants to meditate so much, wants to do the tapasya till the gods come down and give him the boon he wants to have, the superpowers and all. So he says like, okay, I sit in jungle, I start meditating. Now he's sitting in Sukhasana with eyes closed and all. Few hours into the meditation, he begins to feel like, oh, my back is aching. Oh, the fly is bothering me. Oh, it's too hot. It's humid. My breath is not long enough. I'm feeling itchy. He's disturbed by all of this. And he's like, you know what? I'm giving up on the meditation. Let me first deal with my body first. So he now has the goal to make his body error-free. Like, I want to make my body so, perfect that I don't feel any of these issues. Let me work on my back muscles first so that I can hold my position upright. So he starts doing yoga poses. Now, doing yoga poses, you've done yoga poses. I've done yoga poses, and we know they're not the easiest things to do. But when you're working on your physical body, this guy begins to also work on his mind. He works on his breath automatically. All those physical poses you do, it makes you wiser. It doesn't only make you flexible and stronger. It doesn't only make your body flexible. It also makes your mind flexible. Now, he started with his body here. He wanted to get to this point until his body is completely error-free. But he actually started also working on his mind. And then he reaches a point where body and mind meet. Microblast, enlightenment. And he's like, okay, a lot of things are not just related to my body only. Then he sat for the meditation again. And then he's like, wow, I know there's a lot of noise around me. But I now have the power. I can choose whether to get bothered by it or just let it happen.
Meditation also, like you said, that when one starts with meditation, there are certain different kinds of meditations now. There are a lot of them, right? So what is one simplistic form of meditation that you could suggest that's easy to begin with,
right,
and to carry on?
Okay, also want to simplify meditation. Meditation, a lot of people say, मेरे लिए नहीं है. क्योंकि जब भी मैं meditation करने बैठता हूँ, what happens? I get a lot of thoughts in my head. People understand that those thoughts, that internal mental chatter right in the beginning, or even during your practice of meditation, is part of the process. You just have to imagine it's like a plane taking off. In order for the plane to take off, it needs to come out of the hangar. It then needs to find its way to the runway, and then it begins to go, and then it's facing the friction against the wind, and then it uses the winds to take off, and the next thing you know is you're in the middle of the air and there's white noise around you. That's how meditation should feel like. So there is a lot of effort in getting into that timeless state, but you get there. Even if it comes in packets, little bit here and there, fine. Now, internal mental chatter is the part of the process. You can't just get into it. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area. So don't be discouraged about that thoughts coming to your head. Let them come. Just watch them just the way you would watch clouds. Now, coming down to very specific method. If you are in a noisy setting, I don't know, if your house is across the street, across a large busy street or whatever, you sit there. You use those sounds in your favor. You imagine that you are the center of a clock. And kisi ne pee kara, pee, from there, you say like, okay, this is 10 o'clock. किचन से शोर आया 3 o'clock. Somebody behind you 6 o'clock. सामने से शोर आया 12 o'clock. So you play this internal little game around you. So that helps you between, and when there is no sound now around you, you will experience that little packets of meditation that comes, that vacuum there, that timelessness experience. So I think this is a very good method to get into the meditation. And then never think that meditation needs to be done for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Time is not your unit when you're meditating or practicing yoga. Your unit of yoga is the breath. So how you breathe in and out. Hold the pose not for 30 seconds, not for 1 minute. Hold the pose for number of breaths. 5 number of breaths. 3 perhaps. A lot of people don't even know how many times do they breathe in a minute.
True.
Right? And that has the direct correlation on how you feel in your physical self, how you feel with your mental self, and everywhere else that's beyond that layer.
Rightly so. Don't wait for your circumstances and your environment to be conducive to meditation. Instead, whatever you have available, make use of it and bring that into your meditation. Zubin, what is that one powerful mindfulness exercise that you could give out that will help people deep dive into their own mind, their own emotions, and gain some clarity and perspective?
I think reading is quite effective, but again, each one to their own, and a lot of things work for a lot of people. So anything that distracts you from everything that is around you, chopping vegetable. Personally, I love ironing.
Do you?
There's something so satisfying about ironing a white shirt. Oh gosh, how amazing it is to just see that hot plate just taking care of all those wrinkles.
I am the absolute opposite of that.
Oh, I love that. I love the process. इसको पहले यहाँ से करना है, फिर वहाँ से करना है. There is nothing more meditative as ironing or chopping vegetables for instance. I don't know.
No wonders that you're always stressed to the nines. Because, but I'm just the opposite. I don't draw any joy in ironing my clothes or in a lot of mundane activities of the day. Yeah, but reading and writing and journaling is something where I draw my meditative or my self-reflective or observatory practices, wherein I get a sense of clarity about my life.
So I heard this somewhere, which is like meditation is just like giving your front of the mind a mundane task to focus on, so that the back of your mind can relax.
Zubin, one question that I often get is that how does this 10 minutes of meditation a day impact the other 23 hours and 50 minutes of my day? What is the faida of doing this 10 minutes a day?
10 minutes, if you're a beginner, is a very large goal. Even 1 minute is good enough. The fact that you remember to do that 1 minute micro meditation is already somewhere, is already something. It's already a leap towards your own inner self, which is what this entire discussion is all about. Even if you do, let's say, if you succeed in doing 10 minutes of meditation, you are going to work more on serotonin than dopamine.
True.
So it's going to be like, you'll see like, if there's anything you're fighting with, let's say for an instance, an addiction or sleeplessness, it's going to help you feel more content, more still, more stable, more aware of yourself. And that is already a very good reason that you should. If you can't stop yourself from going to the bar, you will see that day perhaps you don't feel the need to go to the bar. You don't have to fight within. And I've worked with a lot of my students who are dealing with addictions. And this is exactly what, there are hundreds of benefits of doing yoga. But this is a very big reason that it doesn't let you chase for the happiness. It doesn't let you chase for more and more. It gets you settled. It makes you content. It's beyond happiness.
Right. So contentment is something that comes from within, and that is about your inner translation of how you perceive your life, right? So how does one draw contentment? Because a life, a world that is constantly drawing you outward, that wants to draw all your facilities outwards and engage them into this distraction and this goal and that fancy thing and the next best thing on the block and stuff like that. How do you still have that sense of clarity or awareness to seek for contentment?
There's one simple thing you need to do. When there are temptations, food-wise there are lots of temptations, and you want to eat more. Aapko pata hai, you're full, but you are eating now for no reason. Then you need to think that there is plenty of food in this world. I can't eat it all.
Mm-hmm.
So this thought helps you getting to okay, already filled with what I need and I'm done with it. I can't finish it all. It's never ending. This is a vicious circle. You're gonna get thing and then you will want something else. ज़्यादा खा लिया, अब मीठा भी चाहिए. मीठा खा लिया, फिर पानी भी पीना. पानी तो पियोगे नहीं, then you will end up drinking a soda or something like this. See, so you are getting for more and more. So basically getting into more dopamine release. कि अच्छा ये भी मिल जाए, वो भी मिल जाए, So all of that. So drawing a line is very simple. You need to understand that there is never an end to it. I'm wearing a nice suit. I want another nice suit. I'm wearing 120 GSM fabric. I need a better one. I need 140. I need 170. I'm having this brand of shoes. I need the latest one now. I mean, until when would you continue to do that? And while you're doing all that chasing, you're missing out on some very important parts of your life. And it's just a switch. And then once you make that switch, your first choice is the hardest. Once you do that, एक दिन decide कर लिया कि forget meditation, start with skincare. कि हर रात मेरी skincare routine ये है, मुझे ये करना है. 30 pages of a book I have to read every day. Set a timer, whatever it takes. Once you get there, you'll see how you are in an upward spiral then. Then you feel like getting out of your bed. Then you feel like sleeping on time. Then you're not into mindless scrolling. Then you're only looking to learn more. Your quality of life will change. The people you will hang out will change. All of this, it just helps you a lot in hundreds of ways.
Zubin, what is the importance of having a routine for yourself? There are people who say that, there should be a particular time when you should practice. There are people who say that it could be any time window during the day that you find for yourself. What is the ideal way to look at it? To your practice and to other things also in life, the importance of routine.
See, I myself, maybe not the best person to comment on it because I struggle with the routine structure. But there is an overall structure to my routine which I have consciously kind of chose to do it that way. Certain days I can break those rules because I know those rules. So if you have to break a rule, you have to know it before. I have ADD, which is I have an issue with attention. So there is a bit of attention deficit, and which means that I could get distracted by ये छोटी चीज ये कर लूँ पहले या वो कर लूँ पहले अच्छा इसको करने जाना है. I need to put my phone to charge, but I'm trying to find the charger, and then this plug is loose, and then I'm going to go and get to the toolkit, and I'm going to get the toolkit, and then the drawer is loose, but then that drawer needs a bit of grease, then I don't have the grease, so I'm going to get into my car and go to the hardware store and get the grease. My grease lene gaya tha, but then I ended up buying other 10 things that I never thought I would need.
Right.
But just in the process of going to put that charger. You see, so this is a lot of struggle. But yoga helps a lot. When you do these kind of things, once you pin a thing, think of every day like a blank sheet of paper. Usme ek dot laga lo, bas. Start with a dot to begin with, and then you'll see everything, ye makdi ke jale ke jaise. Then everything there is always going to be a bit of method to the madness that you're doing. Mm-hmm. That's how I see it. But I'm also learning a lot of these things. I'm also trying to read a lot more about these things. But it's interesting, how setting a routine, one good task a day, helps you with. I don't know, it could be even small habit like drinking 2 liters of water, something like that.
Which brings me to my next question, Zubin. A lot of people say that my body is not ready for yoga. It doesn't come to me. I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. How much is the truth behind this statement?
Well, everybody sets their own truth, but I can tell you, your body will never be ready. 20 years of yoga, you will not be ready. 30 years of yoga, you will not be ready. But ready for what? What do we need to be ready for? It's like saying, I need to learn how to swim, but मैं तभी जाऊंगा पानी के अंदर जब मुझे तैरना आ जाएगा. You see the contradiction here? You need to be able to, you can't learn how to swim without getting into water. So you can't wait to enjoy the swim, till you learn how to swim. So you have to, so it's the process. It's a tiny, there's something called negative bias, which stops us from doing things that are good for us. It's one of those things. Let it evaporate. This thought shouldn't exist. Get into the yoga mat, buy a yoga mat. Yoga mat है, ठीक है, नहीं है, तो भी कोई दिक्कत नहीं. 6 poses कर लो गिन के. That's all what you need. If you really have no time, do the spinal twists, the first. They're the most amazing. They work on every system that there is in your body. Musculoskeletal system. They work on your breath. They work on your central nervous system. They condition your nerves. They make you clear, think clear. They make your communication better. If you do those things, you would find that, hey, listen, maybe today I feel that I'm more eloquent. I'm making more sense. I can put 2 and 2 together better. So get into the spinal twists the first.
Right.
Easy ones. And, guys, let me tell you, touching toes, overrated. Headstand, overrated. The day you will touch your toes, you won't even realize that, hey, listen, you touched your toes. It's not touching the toes. It's the journey from when you were not able to touch the toes till you manage to touch the toes.
So, Zubin, you interestingly go by the handle called materialistic yogi. Now, yogis are often attached to not wanting to have more, having less, recluse, renouncing things of the world and stuff. And you call yourself materialistic.
Oh, I'm shamelessly materialistic. I love the quality of objects, the thought that has gone behind in creation of something. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm skeptical when I'm picking up my goods. But I do love to own things which are greatly done. And that starts from shoes. It could be nicely done suits, for instance. Anything that has something intellectual that has gone behind it. I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of people who create things, who come up with the ideas. Because creation of things, intellectual things, or things that are looking great, things that are functional, is not easy. So I always also exercise a part of my brain by creating things. I have created yoga mat racks in my studio, for instance. I've created wine bottle holders in my studio, for instance. So materialistic, yes, I want to own the things that are greatly associated with quality.
Zubin, yoga is getting a lot of traction. People are practicing yoga. It has been introduced into the schools now as a part of their curriculum once a week, twice a week. But what about yoga philosophy? What about yoga sutras, the scriptures of yoga? Do you think that should be also a part of somewhere our educational curriculum, or there should be an introduction to it?
Absolutely. I think yoga should be a subject altogether. Like studying, if you're studying management, you're studying some form of yoga somewhere. If you're studying biology, you're studying some form of yoga somewhere. So yoga I can totally see this. Maybe not at a very young age. Perhaps there should be proper yoga studies as a subject that schools can totally integrate in there, because this is going to make you better at anything you do. It's going to help you run your companies better. So when you look at the kids, they have very short attention span. So they may not be sitting through the lectures of a typical yoga sutra, or they may not have the attention to attend an entire yoga class starting from the pranayama and all. So you always have to find an interesting way to teach yoga to make sure that the knowledge is being transferred. So how we do it in my class is basically, when we have to teach kids, we say, kids, we are heading to the adventure, and we are going to go in a plane. And then when everybody hears plane, then we do the yanasana. We are now flying over a jungle. We see a lot of trees. And now we are going to do the vrakshasana, the tree pose. And then we see the animal this, animal A, animal B, makarasana, and then comes the cobra pose, the bhujangasana, and then we see a lion, then we do the Singhasan. So it's an interactive way of teaching kids on how to start yoga in a most playful way. So I think it also, as an adult, it makes you so much more happier, because where else can you do silly things? You see, so it's your window to be silly a little bit with the kids and be kids with the kids. Yeah, but when it comes to teaching the yoga philosophy, yes, we can also find a very interesting way to teach yoga philosophy to kids. Perhaps the limbs of yoga can be taught. Perhaps the basic principles of yoga can be taught right at a young age. Why not? There's no harm in doing that. We just need to be creative as we can be when it comes to sharing of that knowledge, whichever way it goes in. So yeah, knowledge share is an important thing, because it's like, if I have $1, I give you $1, then I don't have $1. But if I have an idea, if I give you an idea, then you have two ideas. So this is one way we can simply multiply of what we know, and also can then later on help you in execution what you picked up in terms of your knowledge and intellect.
True. We've spoken so many different aspects of yoga and the connection of yoga to our different areas of life, directly or indirectly. Whether we see it, acknowledge it or not, it has a lasting impact on how you do your even the day-on-day mundane chores. Now, Zubin, tell me, what is the surefire application of yoga and the wisdom that you gain after doing yoga into your life? If you could boil it down to, let's say, 3 areas or 3-pointer list for me.
See, let's say, if you have built up on a little bit of a practice of yoga, let's say, I don't know, nothing more than 6 months, let's say 6 months of yoga you have done, you would already begin to see a lot of places you are already applying your yoga. Whatever you learn on a yoga mat, it gets applied, even starting at a very physical level. When you're climbing the stairs, you're sinking your breath in a way with the way you're climbing the stairs, that you don't gather a breath debt. You're not breathing in when you're breathing out, when you're supposed to breathe out. So there is no collision of the inhalations and exhalation, and then you stop holding your breath, which is a very big thing. Because when we think that we are doing something important, we like to go into the fight mode and stop anything that's happening, including breath. We tend to squeeze our shoulders in. So first, you become very aware of how much of strength you need to apply in anything you're doing. And it's not only on the yoga mat, but yoga is a very interesting way to learn that skill. It's almost a superpower to understand how much of muscle is needed to do something. And that deployment of strength is a skill. So you will see, when people are doing certain pose, they put all their strength into it. Does it really need to be that intense? So that's one skill you learn. Second, your breath. It gets so much better. It gets so much deeper. And so at the level of the body, at the level of the breath, your breathing gets better. You can, relate better with your mind can relate better with your body then. So a lot of things it would say, it improves your communication, for instance, it improves your hand-eye coordination, it improves your proprioception, kinesthetic awareness. It makes you better at what you're saying. It makes you better at what you're doing. X number of ways you can apply yoga. And that's the favorite part of my job. I help a lot of ace athletes in applying yoga in their sports, or people who are trying to set world records. I understand their sport, and I see, okay, for instance, if it's a slow sport, then they need to work on the proprioception. If it's a fast sport, if it's a sport that requires you to move fast, then you need to work on your kinesthetic awareness, for instance, your ability, your reflexes, for instance. So, and these athletes are very intelligent. They know they have built up quite a bit of muscle memory. They can tell you the muscles, like, oh, I'm feeling a bit tight there. I'm feeling a little bit of loose there. So yoga is not just a physical activity. It's not just about the poses. It's about everything you do. Even it's about, something that is so simple as turning the key to start your car on. Everything gets better.
Very well said, Zubin. I truly feel that with the awareness that you get from your yoga practice, whatever is it that you do in your life, you do it a little bit better.
Yes, a lot better.
A lot better, rather, with practice, of course. Zubin, towards the parting note, what are the top 3 life lessons that you have learned from your yoga practice of nearly 2 decades now?
Um, first thing you learn is that progress over perfection. Your yoga journey is never coming to an end because it's always a process that just keeps going on. So you have to be forgiving yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. So that's the second lesson. That how you have to see that, okay, fine, if I'm not able to touch my toes today, it's totally okay. If I'm not in totally sync with my own breath and emotions today, it's fine.
Making peace with the present.
Absolutely.
I think that is one of the most powerful lesson that yoga could teach one, and I think that is one of the most necessary lesson also that we need in today's life, where we are constantly pulled from the forces outside of us to go into all possible directions, which are either in your future or a perceived future or a foreseeable future that you think exists right now in your head and is not your present, right? So you're constantly drawn to moments which are not happening right now to you. So anything that brings you back to this moment
Absolutely.
makes you fall in love with the beauty of what present has to offer. I think it's
Correct.
incredible.
And also, yoga teaches you to be somehow kind to others. I don't know what's the relation here, but you grow more empathy. At least with me, this has worked like this.
You know, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So when you practice yoga, like you said, you become more kinder to yourself, you become more forgiving. And once you have learned these virtues, then only you can give it to
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
Right? It cannot happen if you are not doing it to yourself. I truly believe that your first act of kindness, your first act of forgiveness, all of this should be for yourself. You know, we are taught from the very early on in our lives that, you know, you should be kind, you should share, and this is caring, and all of these principles. But nobody teaches us that all of this you have to do to yourself also.
Yes.
Right? So I think yoga somewhere brings it all back to home for you, because in a quest of just being nicer to people, kind to people, pleasing them at certain scale, we become so outwardly drawn that we start becoming empty from within. And I think all these physical practices, spiritual practices, breath work of yoga brings you back to that home, that sort of the connection is going amiss somewhere.
You're right.
Yeah, so I think yoga is a powerful tool for one to make their journey within.
Absolutely. And it's right there. It takes very little to get started with your yoga practice. It's just there. The only thing is that it has become so saturated. We have heard this word yoga so many times that the real meaning of yoga has just dissolved somehow into something very physical. And if you're talking about the journey within, since that's the real topic, you and I know, like, you know, when we get into yoga journey, that how you then do not have any other options but to look inside.
True. You know, I get this question so many times as an emotional intelligence coach. I coach a few people directly one-on-one basis as well. I get questions on social anxiety. I get questions on confidence building. I get questions on fear management, on things like these. And, you know, any of the areas that you're struggling in your life, at the end of the day, you need some sort of a tool to guide you in certain direction or in a direction that you want to go. So, and there can be multiple tools. I'm not saying yoga is the panacea to every problem in life or anything of that sort, but it is one powerful tool that can help you with every possible area and window in your life.
I would totally agree with what you just said, word by word. I have experienced it. I have seen people experience it. I've seen hundreds of students go through this process. It's a safety net. Yoga is just an amazing safety net. It may not dissolve all your problems, but it will get you to face them, deal with them, for sure.
You know, to my viewers, it might look like that this episode we are just, talking about yoga and glamorizing it too much. But I really feel that this conversation needs to happen a lot more than what it does right now, because in my yoga journey and the students that I have trained or those have worked with me, I have seen a tremendous shift in their approach towards life, not just their health. They've become better mindful eaters, they've become kind people, they've become more compassionate towards themselves. The negative self-talk, the downward spiral that you go on because of your own demons in your head, all of that chatter has reduced so much for so many people that I've seen firsthand. I feel I feel absolutely unapologetic and shameless about promoting yoga and talking and doing an
Totally.
episode as lengthy as this one. on it.
Absolutely. And Shobha, we always focus a lot on learning. Learn this, learn this, learn this, get this skill, get that skill. And what about unlearning? A lot of things that we are taught and we are conditioned to and are very normal around us. We need to unlearn a lot of those things. And that's actually sometimes even harder than learning things.
What is one thing that you have unlearned in your journey thus far?
Like to be so strict to yourself, for instance, starting at a very physical level, like so many things, you need to unlearn. Like sometimes you just end up speaking in a way because that was the way it was spoken in your house. And then you actually realize maybe this communication could have been so much simpler.
True.
And just because it was, you're habitual to that tone, and at some point you will realize, I could have done that softly. So again, like I mentioned, deployment of power. How much power would you deploy in carrying out one single action? Starts with a very physical, you have to start it physically.
Right. Unlearning is important, it's powerful. In my journey of also about nearly a decade, doing and practicing yoga and now teaching it for over half a decade, I would say that what I have unlearned over my practice is the I sense, the ego sense.
Yeah.
If you would have met me 10 years ago, everything in my life would be about me, myself, my decisions, my aspirations, my goals, my vision, my dreams, and everything centered about that. All of my actions would be about that. But during my practice, I learned that you have to stop taking yourself so seriously.
That's
and you have to
correct.
stop associating your self-worth with everything that is happening in your life with it, because you build these connections so much stronger that you are just tangled between now sorting this mess out for yourself. A large part of your energy goes into that. If you could just break this I sense, this ego sense, and just take life easy, a little easier than what we do, a lot becomes simpler.
Yeah. You know how to handle your emotions better then you work on this staircase is very simple. Body, breath, mind. And now mind has a lot of chambers, but it works emotionally. It works on your emotional intelligence. It works on your intellectual layer of your bed. And then your spiritual bed. Everything. That's how it begins. So asana, pranayama, bandhas, mudras. Physical, but then they always lead you somewhere else. So asanas is just the tip of an iceberg, but whatever the entire subject has to teach you, pick up a lot of yoga scriptures. I'm not saying all of them, they make sense completely in 2023. Some are even hard to translate. But the ones we manage to do translations of, wow, how they make sense. Pick up any 8 limbs of yoga, you see like how each one of them make so much of sense. And nobody can question them. See, it's amazing, like, when you really want to dive deep into one subject and you understand, like, how much this has to offer. How much this has to offer.
So today we talked about yoga, this very beautiful, wide discipline that does not need to have one meaning for all. It's such a beautiful, versatile subject that you could cherry pick whatever works for you from it. Your yoga journey does not need to look like somebody else's. Perfection is not something that you should go after. Customization is possible. Practice as versatile and deep as yoga. A powerful tool to rekindle mindfulness within yourself. A powerful tool to make that journey within, understanding your inner world, getting some perspective about life, and just doing everything else that you do, all the actions that you do, a little or a rather lot better with a tadka of yoga in your life.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Zubin, for coming over and participating in this conversation.
No, I should rather thank you because of this. I forget there were cameras around. It was totally into the conversation, and I'm glad where it was being recorded. Lovely. It could have gone a lot longer.
Oh, it could have.
Lovely.
All the best for your second book, Zubin. It's scheduled to come out sometime this year end, I suppose. All the best for that. And I look forward to seeing you more often than I do. And
Likewise.
having some more interactions.
Thanks a lot, Shobha.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zubin Atre. I'm the founder of Atre Yoga, and I help you apply yoga in your daily lives from bigger tasks to smaller tasks. And it was an absolute pleasure to be with Shobha on our podcast, The Journey Within. She's doing an amazing work. Please do subscribe, like, and share with your friends who might find this useful. And stay with us in this journey of the upward spiral. Let's grow together.